Hey everyone, it's Jebeh Edmunds here, and I just wanted to chat with you in the terms of how I came to become an educator. It was quite a different path, non-traditional. My parents were both teachers. My mom was an elementary school teacher, retired, and my father was more in the academic circle. So growing up with a house full of educators, I knew that was my calling, but I wanted to try and break free and do something else. I thought, oh, Jebeh, like Oprah, I can have my own TV show, talk show, and now you can see I'm getting there. I'm getting there. But my path to education really was a different path. And I just wanted to share with you when I did some of my life experiences. Undergrad, I went to college to go in with mass communication. I got my communication degree, and when I had, got married, started working at my local TV station as a producer, and I thought I was well on my way. Jebeh and Lights, gonna have the future Jebeh network. I'm just putting it out there, hoping that it will make it work some way or another. But when I came back to realize that writing scripts on the 6 o'clock or 10 o'clock news on the weekends, no one knew it was me who wrote it. I thought to myself, what kind of impact can I make on the world that is positive, that shows my personality, shows my identity as a proud Liberian American woman? And after my husband and I got married, we had our first son. I just had this inkling that there was more to me to share with the world. And I felt going into education was just that. So I went through that career path of going to grad school every other Saturday with a toddler, and then having our second son right before I got into student teaching. So that whole teaching life, non-traditional experience for me was a blur, but worth it. So I ended up with my master's in teaching, had my first classroom in 2012. I taught a bunch of first graders. 27 was my first number of students, 27 kids. And that first year, educators, as your first year teacher, there's a lot of things. You're like building that plane while you're flying it. And now in 2020, I feel like I got a whole new plane in different parts, but we're still trying our best that we can to make it fun and engaging for all of our students. I just wanted to talk about and reflect that every day, you as an educator, the weekends we sacrifice to plan and make sure that we're hitting those standards, that our students are feeling engaged, that they are understanding what you're teaching. Those are the things that as educators we don't take lightly. And I also want us to know as educators the purpose that we are giving to our students day in, day out, weekends. Making sure that that student of yours that didn't quite get that concept finally got it, and your aha moment, and your parties, your fist bumps in the air that they got it. That makes it all worthwhile. So no matter how your path went, how you thought you were one way in your 20s, and trust us, we all thought we were one way in our 20s. And now that I'm 40 and I'm trying to think about what my next 40, 50, God willing years will look like, it had to be something positive and with a purpose. And my purpose is to share all that I know about African culture, African heritage, African American culture and heritage and history with all of you. And when I create all of my lessons, I'm thinking of you, the educator, in mind. I'm also thinking about your children that you're teaching in front of you. Some of them look a lot like me. Some of them identify differently. But they all need some representation, either coming from you by showcasing educational materials that have your students in mind. That is what my purpose is. My purpose is to share with you all of the lessons that I've created so that when you teach those students that look like me, they know that you have their best interests at heart. They know that you have lessons that are catered towards all of your students, but have those students that don't look like them understand their perspectives too. And I feel like the path that I went on wasn't by accident. I don't regret any of those moments of being in the newsroom. I loved it. I loved the rush of big news that came into the studio. I loved, sitting in the news booth and having my tall chair. But what I found that was missing for me was not the camaraderie of my colleagues in the newsroom. It was the impact that I was getting. When they turned off that TV, the audience that I served, did they know I wrote that story? Did they know I found that story? And there were some stories that were heartbreaking and tragic. There was a moment in my career that there was an embassy in Liberia that was right across from my grandfather's compound, and it was attacked by mortar fire, and hundreds of Liberians lost their lives that day. And I remember working at that news desk, seeing the ticker across the AP, and frantically calling my parents because they had no idea what was happening. And before I knew it, I was being interviewed at 6 o'clock, still in shock, not knowing if my parents contacted our relatives. But that was one of the pinnacle points in my career that I thought to myself, okay, when life happens, when tragedy strikes, how am I going to impact by sharing those stories in a way that is humbling, in a way that people can process what just happened? And when I felt like, as an educator, when tough times happen, when tough things happen to us, there's conversations as an educator who understands her students and his students, and they need to have that dialogue where they are in a safe space, even virtually, but that any of their fears and hopes and dreams can be honored in a space where you can cultivate and help provide different perspectives that they probably didn't know were around. My days in the newsroom as a producer, writing scripts and, making sure things were just right and talking and consulting with the anchors of the show, I knew my purpose at that time in my 20s, that I was to deliver the news of my area, that I was supposed to have an engaging story. But when the storyline hit home for me, that was my aha moment to say, yeah, I want to make an impact on my community. I still can. And when tragedy strikes, I need to use those tools that I already know from my background to cultivate it in a way where when I'm talking to my students, that they know things do happen, tragic things do happen, but there's a way that we can talk about it as a classroom community that makes us all feel human. And when that happened to me on that news segment, I didn't feel like I was human. I felt like I was the story there. And yes, I was the story. I was that person who saw something so tragic happen in her own home country. But the story wasn't about me and my fear of what was going on. The story was, oh, she works for us. Let's get her on. And to me, I felt that human piece disjointed. And that was my aha moment to say, I need to find a different career for myself that has that human attached to something, good, bad, or the ugly. I needed to be in a space where when things do go awry, when things are unsettling, we can still be there for each other. We can still celebrate each other. And as an educator, I feel like it's my responsibility when things do happen, when things do awry, that in my classroom community, I need my students to know that we are in this together as a classroom community. And maybe my opinions are different than your family's opinions. Or we need to have that safe space to share with each other, show empathy with each other, and respect each other. I hope my reflection helped you today. I'll see you around, and don't forget, I have plenty more videos on my YouTube channel and on JebehEdmunds.com. Thanks.